I was watching Vector run when the door opened. The simulation had been live on the main screen for about 20 minutes. Freight corridors lighting up across the map, warehouse queues recalculating, shipment routes adjusting in real time. Everything flowing exactly the way I'd spent 11 years building it to flow. I'm Ray Kowalski, 49 years old, Principal Systems Architect at Halston Freight Solutions. And that morning, watching Vector do what it was built to do, I felt like the work was finally finished. The conference room in our Pittsburgh headquarters had glass walls on two sides. You could see the industrial district below, the old rail yards, the river in the distance, 12 people around the table. Perry Calloway up front, presenting the rollout status like he'd been the one sleeping in server rooms for the past decade. Perry was a good engineer. Sharp, quick learner. He'd been on the Vector project for 14 months and understood maybe 30% of what the system actually was. But he was 34 and confident, and in meetings like this one that counted for a lot. The core architecture is stable, Perry said, gesturing at the projection. Routing automation is self-correcting. The team can manage it going forward. Someone at the table mentioned my name. Perry nodded toward me without breaking his presentation stride. Ray documented everything thoroughly. We're in good shape. I didn't say anything. I'd been at Halston long enough to know when a meeting wasn't really about me. Floyd Navarro, our operations director, tapped the edge of the table. If this rollout works the way the numbers say it should, Vector will handle close to 40% of the company's freight coordination. Perry clicked to the next slide. It will. I watched the simulation run, trucks rerouting automatically, signals updating across 9 regional clients. The system doing exactly what I designed it to do. I'd built a safeguard into the architecture that most executives barely paid attention to during the technical reviews. Before allowing any structural override, Vector required authentication from a registered architecture authority. One credential. Mine. It wasn't a power grab. It was just sound engineering. You don't let anybody rewrite the foundation of a live system without verification. Nobody in that room was thinking about that detail at 9:14 in the morning. Then the door opened. Lorraine Halbrook didn't knock. She walked in slowly, heels on the marble floor, coat still on like she'd just come from somewhere more important. She moved along the glass wall and stopped at the head of the table. Her eyes moved around the room, taking inventory of who was there before settling on me. She had no title at Halston, no badge, no role, no desk. She wasn't on any org chart anywhere in the building. What she had was a husband. Victor Halbrook, the CEO, had been letting her sit in on meetings, weigh in on hiring decisions, and walk the executive floor without a second thought for as long as most people at the company could remember. Nobody ever pushed back hard enough to make it stop. My husband built this company, she said. No greeting, no context. She reached into her coat pocket and placed her phone face up on the table. Victor's name was visible at the top of the message thread. She didn't read from it. She just let it sit there. Victor and I have been talking about this, she said. The company can't keep running on the assumption that one person holds the keys to everything. Floyd started to say something. She moved past it. Her eyes came back to me. Ray, she said. My name like she was closing a tab. You're no longer needed on this project. The room went completely still. Nadine Prescott from HR cleared her throat. Lorraine, there's a process for this. Personnel decisions require legal sign-off, executive authorization through proper channels. Lorraine raised one finger slightly and nodded toward the phone. My husband runs this company. When he reaches a decision, he expects it to be carried out. Nobody moved. Floyd looked at me. I could tell he was calculating how far he was willing to go, and the number was coming up short. Ray, Floyd said quietly, we may need your badge while this gets clarified. I unclipped the badge from my jacket and set it on the table next to the projection remote. Then I picked up my jacket and stood. I looked at Lorraine, kept my voice low enough that the people at the far end of the table had to lean in. Then you might want to explain to legal and to your husband why your entire system will disappear in 6 minutes. Perry frowned. What does that mean? I walked to the door and opened it. You'll figure it out. I stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind me. I took the elevator down, walked through the lobby, and pushed through the front doors into the cold Pittsburgh morning. Traffic moved on the street below. A freight truck idled at the corner, which I noticed the way you notice things when your mind is already somewhere else. My phone buzzed 4 minutes later. I didn't answer. I already knew what was happening upstairs. Inside the operations center on the 4th floor, the first alert appeared at 9:18 a.m. A small yellow notification blinked on the Vector dashboard. Architecture Authority verification failed. One of the analysts leaned closer to his monitor and frowned. He typed a few commands, pulling up the system map. A handful of nodes on the Midwest Freight Corridor had entered limited response mode. He figured it was a credential sync delay. Those happen sometimes during major rollouts. Give it a minute, run a reset, move on. He ran the reset. Nothing changed. A second alert appeared 2 minutes later. This one was orange. Override authentication failure. The analyst called across the room to another engineer. They both pulled up the console and started typing, trying to access the routing control layer from 2 different terminals. Perry walked in from the conference room just as the second warning appeared. He looked at the screens, looked at the engineers, and said it was probably a permissions issue. He sat down at the main console and started working through the command sequence he'd watched me run a dozen times during testing. Access denied. He switched terminals. Denied. He tried a manual override on the Chicago routing node. Denied. The phones along the operations desk started ringing. One operator picked up, listened for about 10 seconds, and covered the receiver. Atlas Freight says their shipment queue hasn't updated in 25 minutes. Another phone rang. Denver client dashboard was frozen. Then a call from Dallas. Warehouse automation had dropped into restricted mode, and their floor supervisors were switching to manual processes, which meant people with clipboards instead of computers, which meant everything slowing down by about 60%. Lorraine had followed Perry into the operations center. She stood near the back wall with her arms crossed, watching the screens flash amber and red. Every few minutes she said some version of, "Well, fix it," and nobody answered her because nobody knew how. Perry wiped his hands on his trousers and tried another command sequence. The system refused it. He tried He called one of the senior engineers over, and they worked through it together for 20 minutes, pulling up documentation, cross-referencing the architecture diagrams I'd filed during the build phase. The diagrams told them what the system was doing. They didn't tell them how to make it stop. One of the younger engineers studying the system logs went quiet. He pointed at his screen. "Look at this timestamp." Perry leaned over his shoulder. The architecture lockout had started at 9:14 a.m. The exact minute my badge credentials were pulled from the system. Not a glitch, not a sync error. The system had registered the revocation of architecture authority and responded exactly the way it was designed to respond. Every structural override command now required authentication that nobody in the building could provide. Perry stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he stood up straight and didn't say anything. Across town, I was sitting at a diner counter with a cup of coffee when Victor Halbrook called. I'd been expecting it. I let it ring twice, then answered Ray. His voice was smooth and measured, the voice of a man who had talked his way out of corners before. "I understand there was some confusion during the meeting this morning." "That's one way to describe it," I said. "Lorraine can be enthusiastic about company matters. You know how she is. But the leadership team has made its decision, and I think the mature thing here is for everyone to move forward professionally." I drank my coffee and let him keep talking. "You know how small the logistics technology sector is?" Victor continued. "People talk. If your departure becomes contentious, if this turns into some kind of dispute, it won't reflect well on anyone, certainly not on you." He paused just long enough for that to land. "You were a contractor, Ray, a good one. But don't confuse that with having ownership over the work." I set my coffee cup down. Before I'd left my apartment that morning, I'd had a feeling about how the day might go. Not a specific premonition, just the low-grade awareness that comes from watching a situation build for months. Victor and Lorraine had been circling the project for the better part of a year, asking questions they had no business asking, inserting themselves into meetings they hadn't been invited to. I'd started keeping records, dates, emails, conversations I summarized in a private document I kept off the company server. And that morning, before I walked into the launch meeting, I'd opened the call recording app on my phone and left it running in my jacket pocket. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state. I knew that because Carl had told me once years ago during an unrelated conversation about a business dispute he was handling. The detail had stuck. Victor finished his speech and waited for me to respond. "I understand," I said. "Good," Victor said. "Then we shouldn't have any problems." The line went quiet. I ended the call and immediately called my brother. Carl Kowalski picked up on the second ring. He's been a corporate attorney for 18 years, and he has the particular quality of someone who stopped being surprised by people a long time ago. I told him what had happened, gave him the short version, and then told him about the call I just recorded. There was a pause on his end. "Send it to me right now." Already pulling it up, I said, "Ray." His voice shifted into the register he used when something mattered. "Don't talk to anyone at that company without me knowing first. Not HR, not the board, nobody." "You clear on that?" "Clear," I said. "Good. I'm going to make some calls." I left the diner and walked back out into the cold. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Halston's main operations line. I put it back in my pocket and kept walking. By early afternoon, I'd find out the full picture of what was happening upstairs. But right now, Carl was working and Vector was doing what it was built to do, and that was enough. By early evening, the operations floor looked nothing like it had that morning. Roland Hess, the CFO, had pulled every financial exposure report he could find and spread them across the secondary conference room. The numbers were not good. Victor had been offline in critical functions for going on 7 hours. 3 clients had fully disconnected their integration. 8 more were on limited manual operations. The penalty clauses in Halston's service contracts were structured around automated routing uptime, and the triggers were starting to stack up. Roland ran the projection twice because the first result looked wrong. It wasn't. If the system stayed locked through the next morning, Halston was looking at up to $40 million in contract penalty exposure across the affected accounts. That was the conservative number. The aggressive number was worse. He walked the printout down the hall to Victor's office. Victor looked at the page for a long time without saying anything. Lorraine was sitting in the chair across from his desk. Victor had asked her to stay in the building after the morning meeting, wanting someone he trusted nearby while the situation developed. She'd been moving between his office and the operations center all afternoon, watching the engineers work, asking questions they couldn't answer, and making suggestions that nobody could use. Victor looked up from the report. How long to bring in outside technical support? Roland shook his head. This isn't a standard outage. The system isn't broken. It's locked. Outside support can't authenticate to the architecture layer any more than our own team can. We need the credential. Nobody said my name out loud, but it was in the room. Lorraine uncrossed her arms. If the entire network shuts down because one person walks out the door, that's a design flaw. That's on the engineering team. Roland looked at her carefully and said nothing. Victor rubbed the bridge of his nose. Get me Dwight Mercer's number. Roland already had it ready. Dwight Mercer was the chairman of the board. More to the point, he was the managing partner of the investment fund that had provided the primary financing for the Victor expansion. The lenders who approved the $300 million rollout had done so largely on Dwight's recommendation. He was 67 years old, based in Philadelphia, and had the reputation of a man who did not raise his voice because he had never needed to. Victor made the call himself. He kept it brief, framed it as a technical complication during the rollout, said the engineering team was working through it. Dwight listened without interrupting. Then he asked 2 questions. How long has the system been down, and who built it? Victor answered both. There was a pause on the line. I'll be there tonight, Dwight said. He chartered a flight out of Philadelphia. It was just over an hour in the air. His sedan pulled up to Halston headquarters a little before midnight. By then, the boardroom on the executive floor had been converted into a situation room. Roland had the financial projections on one screen and the Vector system status on another. 4 members of the board who were local had come in. Perry was there, sitting near the wall, quieter than he'd been all day. Lorraine was still present. Victor had asked her to stay, and no one with the authority to override that decision had arrived yet. When Dwight walked in, people straightened without thinking about it. He had that effect. He moved to an open seat at the far end of the table, set down his coat, and looked around the room once. Tell me what happened, he said. From the beginning, Roland walked him through it. The morning meeting, Lorraine's arrival, my removal, the credential lockout 4 minutes later. The cascade of client alerts through the afternoon, the penalty exposure projections on the screen behind him. Dwight listened to all of it without interrupting. Then he looked at Victor. Where is Ray Kowalski? Victor shifted in his chair. He's no longer with the company. He was let go this morning. I understand that, Dwight said. I'm asking where he is right now. I don't know. Dwight looked at Roland, who authorized the termination. Roland glanced toward Lorraine, then back at the table. Victor answered. Lorraine communicated the decision during the morning meeting. The room went quiet in a specific way, the kind of quiet that happens when something has been said that cannot be unsaid. One of the board members leaned forward. His name was Gary Sutton, and he'd been on the Halston board for 9 years. Victor, you allowed a non-employee to remove the principal architect of a live infrastructure system. On launch day, Victor started to say it wasn't supposed to escalate the way it did. Sutton closed his folder. Lorraine stood up straighter. If the system stops functioning because one engineer leaves, that is an engineering problem. You can't build a $300 million network with a single point of failure and then blame the people who noticed it. Dwight turned toward her. His voice stayed completely level. Mrs. Halbrook, you are not an employee of this company. She opened her mouth. Nobody at the table moved to support her. The air in the room had shifted in a way that her confidence couldn't change. Dwight turned back to Victor. You permitted someone without any corporate authority to make a personnel decision that has now put $40 million in contract exposure on the table on the night before this company's largest rollout in a decade. Victor said, I understand how it looks. I don't think you do, Dwight said. He folded his hands on the table. Victor, effective immediately. You are suspended as CEO pending a full board review of this incident. Victor exhaled slowly. He didn't argue. There wasn't much to argue with. Dwight looked at Roland. Get me Ray Kowalski's number. My phone rang a little after midnight. Unknown number. I picked up Mr. Kowalski. This is Dwight Mercer. I said I recognized the name. Your system, he said, is currently refusing to cooperate with my company. He wasn't hostile, just direct, the way people get when they've run out of patience for anything other than the actual problem. Would you be willing to come back tonight and restore operations? I thought about it for about 2 seconds. Yes, I said. A car will be outside in 10 minutes. I put on my jacket and waited by the window. The Pittsburgh skyline sat low and orange against the clouds. Somewhere out there, 9 regional clients had warehouses running on clipboards and hand radios because a woman with no job title had decided that morning that I wasn't necessary. The car arrived in 8 minutes. When I walked back into Halston headquarters, the lobby felt like a different building. The daytime confidence was completely gone. The security staff nodded at me without the usual check-in procedure. The elevator opened onto the 4th floor, and I could hear the operations center before I turned the corner. Phones, keyboards, low voices talking through problems they couldn't solve. Perry was standing near the server room entrance. When he saw me come around the corner, he stepped back and gave me room to pass. He didn't say anything. I didn't either. There wasn't much to say at midnight after the day we'd both had. The operations center had 6 engineers still at their stations. Someone had brought in coffee at some point, and the cups were sitting cold and half-finished on the desks. When I walked in, one of the younger analysts looked up and said, quietly, "She's here," then caught himself, "He's here." I sat down at the main console. The vector interface came up on the screen immediately. The system status showed amber across most of the freight network. Restricted mode, waiting. Not broken, not corrupted, just sitting there with its arms crossed. Same as I'd been doing for the past 15 hours. Run a full integrity check before I authenticate, I said. One of the engineers nodded and started the sequence. It took 90 seconds. Everything came back clean. The architecture was exactly as I'd left it. Nobody had managed to get inside and change anything because nobody had been able to get inside at all. I entered the authorization sequence. The system responded in under 10 seconds. Routing authority restored, warehouse scheduling resumed. Shipment calculations recalculating across all active nodes. On the board above the operations floor, the amber indicators started shifting, one by one, then faster. Amber to green. The freight corridors across the map lit back up the way they had that morning during the simulation. Except this time it wasn't a simulation. Real trucks, real warehouses, real shipments that had been stuck in queues since 9 in the morning. Trans-North is reconnecting. Someone called out, "Denver client dashboard is back online. Chicago corridor just cleared." One of the engineers leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath like he'd been holding it since lunch. Dwight Mercer was standing near the back wall. He'd come down from the boardroom while I was authenticating and stood there quietly through the whole thing. When the last of the major nodes came back online, he walked over and stood next to the console. "Mr. Kowalski," he said, "the board would like to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer, pending formal vote tomorrow morning, which I expect to be straightforward." I looked at the screen for a moment. Thousands of shipments moving again. Hundreds of warehouses back in sync. 9 clients reconnecting to a network they'd been locked out of since before lunch. "I'd consider it," I said. Dwight nodded once. "Good." He picked up his coat from the chair where he'd left it. Before he left the operations floor, he stopped and looked at the main display for a moment. "Next time," he said mostly to the room, "let's make sure the person who built it is still in the room." Then he left. The board meeting the next morning took 40 minutes. Dwight presented the incident report, Roland presented the financial exposure numbers, Gary Sutton presented the governance failure summary. Then Carl, who I'd asked to attend as my legal representative, submitted the recorded phone call and a formal complaint regarding the post-termination threat to my professional standing. Victor Halbrook's position as chief executive officer was terminated effective immediately. The vote was not close. Lorraine tried to say something about the decision being an overreaction. Dwight looked at her and said her name once calmly and reminded her that she was not an employee of the company. Security was asked to escort both of them from the building. That same week, the board passed a governance policy. No, non-employees would be permitted to participate in operational decisions. No exceptions. Lorraine Halbrook was permanently barred from the premises. The company-wide announcement went out the following afternoon. One paragraph, Ray Kowalski, Chief Technology Officer. I stayed late in the operations center that evening. Everyone else had gone home. The screens were running clean, green across the board, freight moving from Pittsburgh to Denver to Atlanta and back again. Exactly the way it was supposed to move. I'd built this thing across 11 years of early mornings and late nights and meetings where nobody could quite explain what I did or why it mattered. One morning, someone decided the architect wasn't necessary by midnight the same day they were on the phone asking him to come back. Victor already knew the answer. It had known all along. If you've ever been the person in the room who actually built the thing, while someone else stood at the front taking credit for it, you already know how this story feels. Most men who've spent 20 or 30 years in a career have watched this happen at least once. Someone with a title but no knowledge, someone with access but no ability, walking in and making a call they had no business making. The work doesn't lie. That's the part they never account for. You can take the badge, you can clear the desk, but you cannot revoke what someone actually built. Sooner or later, the system tells the truth. If this story hit close to home, share it with someone who would understand why.